Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Michael James, and today we're going to take a look at the MWF Pro Wood to Onyx workflow. During the course of this webinar, we're going to look at the following topics. So we'll look at how we can upload our Revit geometry to Onyx, how we can prepare our uploaded components and assign them to CNC machines so we can generate our CNC outputs, how we can make modifications to our panels using the CNC editor, and then finally how we can generate CNC outputs using Onyx. So first of all, we'll take a look at our model, where you'll see that we have a fairly decent sized residential model which comprises of two halves. We have the west wing and we have the east wing. So for the purpose of today's webinar, we'll be focusing on the west wing and more specifically on the second floor of the west wing. So before we can upload our geometry into Onyx, it's important that we first have access to the Onyx Upload Center, which is available via the Onyx web browser. Once downloaded, you'll see it appear as an additional tab inside of Revit, where we can then upload our geometry using some of the tools available. So what I need to do first is go to Show Upload Manager, where I can point towards a project where I want to send my Revit geometry. So I'll first log in. So once logged in, we can then point towards a project where we want to send our Revit geometry into Onyx. So I'll select this project, and then there are a couple of ways that we can upload the individual members that make up our overall panels, and we need to send that geometry into Onyx so it can understand what the panels are made from. So the first option is to say upload sections. Within the Upload Sections dialog box, you'll see that we have the option to choose steel, wood, sheathing, and hardware. So we're working with a wood model today. So I'm going to go to lumber, where you can see that we have the various member types that we have available in this project. So I can simply select one of these members and I could say upload. If I wanted to change anything related to this member, so for example the section shape, I could change the profile associated with it. And I can also see how many times this has been sent into Onyx previously. As this is a new project, this is version 1, this is the first time this element will be uploaded into Onyx. If I want to upload all elements at once, I can click on the checkbox at the top, and I've also got these filter options to allow me to select specific elements when uploading the geometry to Onyx. So we have this option. For now, I'll say close, and I'll just demonstrate the second option that we have available. So we can upload the sections, which is an important step, and we can also upload sections via the Upload Panels area as well. So in the Upload Panels dialog box, you'll see that we have a list of our panels, and we have the option to filter. So we have filters to say select our wall panels. Based on our host as well, our levels, we can choose to load a specific level. So we can see that we have all of our second floor panels here, for example. If you've associated a level, you can then also filter by area, and we've got the version number based on how many times this panel has been sent into Onyx. So if I was to select my external panel here, you'll notice on the right we have a component status related to our panel. This component status will tell us whether or not the members within this panel have been uploaded to Onyx before. So at the moment, you can see the component status is showing all. We also have the option to set show me uploaded and show me the elements that are not uploaded. So if I have a look at the not uploaded area, you'll notice that it still highlights the panel to tell us that there are elements within this panel that are not uploaded. So if I extend this drop down menu, you'll see that we have a sheathing panel and some members within the panel that are still yet to be uploaded. The red cross tells us that Onyx cannot see these members at the moment and that we need to upload them. So I can simply go to the Components Upload Manager where I can then select Lumber, and we can see the members that are yet to be uploaded. Within Sheathing, you can see there are elements that need to be uploaded, and also within Hardware. So I'll upload Hardware first, simply selecting the elements in the list and say Upload. Now I'll upload the sheathing elements and the outstanding components. So now all the outstanding components have been uploaded. We can simply say close. And now when we check this panel against the elements which are not uploaded, you'll see that the list is empty and we can see which elements are uploaded. And you'll see that we have green ticks to tell us that Onyx can now see these elements. So now we've successfully uploaded our panel members into Onyx. Then we can look at the different ways that we can select panels ready to upload them into Onyx. So there are two methods that we can use. And I'll close this dialog box. And one of those methods is to upload panels based on the selection. So if I select one of my panels, you'll see that when I go to Onyx, Upload Panel, it will only load the selected panel. On the other hand, if I don't select any panels, then it will detect all the panel types currently available in the view, and it will load all of those panels. So if I go, so I hit Escape, and I go to Upload Panels, this time you'll notice it will load all the panels. So now those panels are loaded, we can then use filters and the search box to find specific panels that we want to load into Onyx. So I'm going to go to my filter and I'm going to choose my wall panels, select all panels, and I'll simply say Upload. The selected panels will be uploaded into Onyx. And there's a report just to tell us that those panels were successfully uploaded into Onyx. I'll click OK. And the only panels that are remaining are the ones which weren't selected. So I'll simply close the dialog box, and you'll see in the view now that we have a red overlay over the panels that have been uploaded into Onyx, just to give us a visual indication that something has changed and that these are now locked for editing. What we'll do now is we'll jump into Onyx. So I'll just go to my browser and log into my account. So now I've uploaded our panel and the panel members or components into Onyx. We can access those members from the component types menu within Onyx on the left hand side, as you can see. So if I click on component types, you'll notice a list of all of our members. So we've got profiles, we've got our number members, all of our members that have been loaded into our Onyx account. The reason I say account is because our Onyx accounts can contain multiple projects, And when we upload a panel member, that member can be seen by all of the projects which are referencing that member type. So that means we only have to upload the member once, and if the project's using the same member, it will automatically recognize that member type. So as you can see in the table, we've got the family symbol. So we've got our family member sizes. So we've got 2x6, 2x8, 2x10, etc. We've got family type, section shape, width, amongst some of the values as well and parameters. On the right, you can see our CNC machine value relating to a member, and you can see each of our members say do not cut. We don't want it to say do not cut, because when we're generating our CNC outputs, we need to reference these panel members, and in order to do so, we need to have our machine settings associated with each of these member types. To associate a machine to our panel members, we can simply select one, go to Assign CNC Machine, where you'll see at the top we have our machine type. So you can see here I've got BTL, and beneath that we have our machine setting. We currently don't have any settings associated with our machine type, so first we need to create our settings so we can associate them with our panel members. So I'll click Close, and I'll go to my settings. So within the settings menu, you can see just beneath settings, we have our CNC machines option, which is where we can configure our CNC machine settings. Before I do that, we need to look at our units. Our units will be used to control the level of precision and also the units of measurement when we're generating things like our machine settings and any templates that we generate in Onyx. As these are dynamic, we can make a change to the units at any point, but it's important that the units are set correctly before we generate any settings or any templates. So for the purpose of the webinar today, I'm going to set my units to metric, but as you can see, we have imperial, we have feet and inches, decimal and fractional, as well as the level of precision for our construction tolerance and our manufacturing tolerance. We have the same options for our weight value as well. You can see we have imperial, we have metric, and we have pounds and the level of precision. So as I said before, I'll be using metric measurements today, where we can choose meters or millimeters. We have decimal values, and we have construction tolerance again. For our weight, if I set this to metric, it's in kilograms, and we have the level of precision that we can set as well. I'll save those settings, which will now be available for me to use when I generate my settings and templates. Now I'll click on CNC Machines, where I can set my saw machine and my machine type. So you can see my machine subtype is BTL, and I can say Add Setting. And you'll see within this menu, I have my machine subtype. I can give this setting a name. So this is how I'll identify this machine in a list of other machine settings. So I'll say BTL 01, just for simplicity. Depending on your naming convention and maybe the machine type that you're using and the members it can produce, you might want to name this after your machine type or model, or however you need to in order to identify it. As you can see, our units are read-only, and you can see it's using our metric, decimal, millimeter measurements, and we've got the manufacturing tolerance and format already pre-configured here. We've got some machine options where we can set a starting offset. So when we're generating our panels, we can have a starting offset for our tool. I'll just set that to 0, and we can have an end offset as well. So when we finish as an endpoint, it can be offset by a certain amount. Our saw tolerance, based on the width of our blade, we can set that value there as well. And we could choose to use the position name. So if we've run member positioning, we can use the position value in our naming convention inside of Onyx. We can output the selected files in one file. So if I select multiple elements and download CNC, we can output those selected elements in one file rather than have them in independent or individual files. And we can also choose to exclude tracks and exclude verticals in our panels as well. I'll simply say create, and you can see some information referring to these settings that I've just generated. If I quickly wanted to generate more settings or any new settings, I can duplicate my existing settings where I can make minor changes and then save it as a new option. That will just speed up the process. So now we've generated our new machine settings, I'll simply go back to the component types menu, where we can associate these settings with our member types. So within Lumber, we'll select all members. You can set multiple settings for all of your different member types, depending on the capabilities of your machine and the members it can produce. But in this case, we've got 2x10, 2x8, etc., etc. And I'll say assign CNC machine, where I can choose my machine type and the settings for that machine. As you can see, it's associated those machine settings with all the selected member types, and it's just as simple as that. Now I can produce my CNC outputs with the settings that I've configured. So in order to do that, I need to go back to my project. And once I click into my project, I'll be taken into the panel manager, where I can see all of the panels that are now part of this particular project. The panel manager is a great place to find information related to all of our panels that have been uploaded to Onyx. And as well as finding our panel information, we can also see information relating to the members that are associated with the selected panel as well. So you can see when I select a panel, at the bottom here we have members, where you can see we have our top tracks, bottom tracks, headers, and any other families that make up our panel. So within the panel manager, there are quite a few things that we can do, as well as generate reports and also generate outputs. But maybe before we decide to do any of those things, we want to do a visual check on the panel, and maybe add a last minute operation to the panel as well. When it comes to making modifications to our panels, we can't carry out modifications to the physical members of the panels. So if we need to add an additional member, that's something that we'll have to do inside of Revit. But we can add operations, additional operations to the panel. So once we get into the CNC editor, we've got a filter that we can use to specify the panels that we want to load into the view. And I want to focus specifically on level 2. So I'll just uncheck level 1 and say load panels. On the left, you can see we have a list of all of our panels, and I'm just going to focus on the external panel 13. And for this particular panel, we don't want to look at the sheathing, so we can uncheck the sheathing in the view. But we do want to take a look at our framing. So within the panel, you can notice we have a few characteristics, of a few things that we can focus on more specifically. At the bottom of our opening, you can see we have some operations, some rectangular hole notch operations, where our cripples are notched into our sill. You can see where our horizontal members are placed, we have a bit of a clash between our joint stud and the horizontal member. So what we can do is we can add a operation, a rectangular hole operation, just to notch out where the clash is occurring. So what I'll do is I'll go to wood operations, and I can place a rectangular hole on the selected member. So once I've selected the member, you can see our operation is currently obscured by the horizontal member. And we have the option to choose the reference side. So I want the reference side to be the top based on our view cube orientation, I just want to make it match that position. So we want to say top. And now what I need to do is resize it according to the size of the notch that we need. So I know that my members are 2x6 members, and what I need to do is make sure that the width is 1.5 inches, and for our length, we can see that the value has to be 139.7. For the depth, we want the depth to be equal to the size of the notch that we need to create. And in this case, it is going to be equal to the depth of this particular member. And again, we can see this is a 2x6 member. So we want to make sure that the depth matches that value. So I can click on my rectangular hole and just make sure that that is, again, 1.5 inches. Okay, all I need to do now is place it centered over the member, and if we go to our transparent level of detail, you can see that it's currently notching the area where this member would be clashing. Okay, so as we continue to look around the panel, we can see we have some operations at the bottom. So we have some round holes based on where our anchor bolts will be placed in our Revit model. And if we take a look at the top of our panel, we can see that we have a slight overhang. So what we need to do is select our top track, and we can add a longitudinal cut. So as you can see, we have a 2x8 member here, which is, well, too large for this panel. So we have two options. We could go into Revit and replace the member, or we could add an operation to place a cut on this particular member type. So if I go to longitudinal cut, you'll see it places this operation, and the operation is currently facing us. So you can see the reference side is currently back, and in relation to our view cube, you can see the operation is currently facing us. So if I change the reference side to top, you'll see the longitudinal cut is repositioned, and you can see it's placed at the top, near the top end of this top track member. I want to change the value from 73 to 72. And you can see that cuts quite nicely near the edge of that panel there. I'll do the same thing for the bottom of the panel as well. So I'll go longitudinal cut, change the reference to bottom, and I'll just make sure the offset is 72. Okay, so now our track would be cut to create the right size member in this case. Okay, so as we made a few modifications to the panel, we could also add round holes as well. So we could simply add a round hole, but as our panel doesn't need it, I won't add those operations, but just to show what they can do. If I click round, again we can choose the reference side. So in this case it is at the top. We can choose the depth, the hole diameter, and we can change the location as well as some of the other information as well. We could add a slot hole, and again if I choose slot hole, you can see it place a hot slot hole where we can choose the position. We can grab it manually, and we can also type in a specific value to place it accurately as well. Again, we have information relating to the reference side, alignment and the position. And as I said before, as we don't need these operations, I'll just remove these for now. So the modifications that we have made to the panel, maybe I want to save these to the panel, so when we create our CNC output, these operations are also included. In order to do that, I'll go back to the General tab, where we have the option to either save, which will save our session as a draft and not include those edits as part of the final output, or we can publish, which will then save the changes to the output. And when we create our output, it will be included. All the operations will be included. So I'll say publish, and that will publish my settings and my panel. So back into the panel manager, we have our panel 13. And as you can see, this panel's CNC edited status is set to yes, because this panel has been modified within the CNC editor. So as mentioned previously, there are two ways to generate CNC outputs from Onyx, and one of those methods is via the panel manager. In order to generate an output from the panel manager, we need to first of all select a panel. So for example, my panel 13. And we have two options when we select a panel. We can either download the CNC output related to the whole panel, or if we scroll down to the members section at the bottom here, we can generate outputs based on the selected members within the panel. As you can see, we have the download CNC output option here as well for our members. I'm going to download CNC for the whole panel, so I'll just select the panel and I'll simply click on download CNC. Once downloaded, it will generate an output, and you'll see that our profile status changes to downloaded. There are also other statuses that will display depending on what we download and how we download, and I will go through those shortly. The second option that we have when it comes to downloading or generating a CNC output is via the CNC editor. So again, we'll jump back into the CNC editor, where, as we already know, we can make some edits to our panels and we can make some modifications. So again, I'm just going to load or enable my filter just to load in specific panels. So I'll just choose level 2 and I'll select one of the panels from the list. So in this case, I've selected panel 12. And for this particular panel, I'll just turn off the sheathing. And we can see here that we have our panel 12. So let's imagine we've made some edits to this panel and now it's ready to produce an output. So we're now ready to produce an output for it. Before we generate the output, we can view the code related to this panel and its members. So in our General tab, we have the option to select the code viewer from the General panel. So I'll click on Code Viewer. And this will allow me to view the specific CNC output data for a selected member. So if I select the top track, for example, you'll see the information related to that selected member is shown in the window for our code viewer. This is relevant to any other member that I select in the panel as well. And as I select these elements, I can find the data relating to that specific member, and we can find the process information. So if it's a drilling operation, the position, and other information relating to that as well within the code viewer. Okay, so once we're ready to generate our output, we can simply say publish. So if we've made some modifications to the panel, we simply say publish. And we can say download in order to generate our CNC output. So again, it produces our output for us as a downloaded file, and that'll be sent to the download path that we have specified within our Onyx preferences. So once again, we'll jump back into the panel manager where we can look at the different statuses that will show for our panels as we modify and generate outputs for them. So as you can see, we've got panel 12 and panel 13 downloaded, and as I mentioned before, we have different statuses available. So the first status that we'll usually see inside of the panel manager is the new status. This relates to any panels which haven't been newly introduced into the panel manager. So we've just loaded our files and you can see that we have the profile status set to new. The status will stay as new until we either download the CNC output for that selected panel or selected members in the panel. So for example, if I go to panel 14 and instead of downloading the whole output for the entire panel, maybe I want to download the output for selected members. So I'll select top track, bottom track, and just my end vertical members, just for now. So with those members selected, I'll simply say download CNC. And you'll see it will generate an output. And then you can see that the status for my panel 14 has changed to partial. This is related to the fact that I haven't downloaded all the members, but I've downloaded only a few of the members, so only part of the panel has been downloaded. So our status has now changed to partial. Once we download all the members, then the status for the panel will change to downloaded, and that brings us on to the other status that we've seen previously. There's a fourth status that we can see as well, and if I just go out of my project and into the manufacturing center, you'll see that it shows us information relating to our sort orders and the panels that we have currently downloaded, or at least the members we've downloaded so far. So you can see our project. So any projects which are currently running or currently ongoing where we have downloaded an output for our panel members, those will display within the manufacturing center, where we can then see some information relating to those elements within that project. We can set the status for these elements to completed, just to say that these have actually been produced in real life. So if we wanted to see which output each of these corresponds with, so as we've generated 3 files, we may want to see which file, so which panel are we referring to when we set it to completed. I'll just go to columns where we can see our sort order, and we should have our sort order number, which shows us the order in which the sort orders were generated. So this will be our first output, which is sort order 5. Second output will be sort order 6, and then the third one that we produced based on those partial members would be sort order 7. So I'm just going to click on my sort order 6, which was the second one that we generated within the project, and I'll simply say that this one has been completed. I'll click OK, and the status has now been saved. So now when I go back into my project, we'll see that the status for that panel has been changed to cut, as you can see there. So as mentioned before, we have 4 statuses. We have the new status based on a new panel inside the panel manager, partial status based on only selected members being downloaded in the panel, downloaded status, which shows when all of the panel members have been downloaded and our CNC output has been generated, and we have the cut status for when we have generated that member and produced it in real life. And this is just to give an indication that this has now been produced. So that takes us to the end of the webinar. Appreciate you listening today and hope you enjoyed it.